Well, welcome to the St. Mark's family meeting. This seems like a strange way to meet, but since the onset of the COVID-19 virus, it seems like a way that we meet all the time now, which is online. What we wanted to do is give you a brief overview of the board of directors, remind you of who everyone is, talk about the ministry budget impacts that have taken place this year, where we think we're going to finish up next month with our financial situation, and then talk a little bit about our budget overview for next year, and then ask you to vote on approving the recommendation that we've brought forward. I'm Steve Caston. I'm the president of the congregation for this year. We also have Jake Petrie serving as vice president, Anna Mortis secretary, and Penny Richardson as treasurer. The rest of the board is made up of Kim Becker, Phil Richardson, Joan Salters, John Schrader, and Mike Gates. These are the men and women that are managing the ministry at St. Mark's for you. We've been meeting since the onset of the COVID virus via Zoom and trying to keep things moving forward in our ministry with all the unanswered questions that are out there. When we look at the 2020 ministry, and that is basically the last fiscal year from last July 1 through this June 30th, and the things that have taken place, there's been some highs and there's been some lows with respect to the financial side of things. And I just wanted to go over a few of those. With regard to tithes and offerings, they've stayed fairly steady, but they are down 4% from what our projection was for what would be in our budget. So that means we've had a reduction of about $21,000 in revenue on tithes and offerings from where we thought they would be. In the school, the K through 8 tuition actually is higher than what we had anticipated in our budget, and it's about a little over $20,242 higher than we anticipated. So that was a positive thing that we've seen this year. We had a challenge in the early childhood this year, and in particular with the TWOS program. We were down some students in the TWOS program. When we looked around and checked into that, what we found out is there were a few more preschools open in the Eureka area, and we had competition. So we lost some students to that competition. That amounted to about $150,000 in revenue that was in our budget that we didn't realize because those students went to other programs. So that's something that we've had to deal with. And then COVID-19 came along in March, something that we had no idea was coming, and that it has impacted the church and the school operation in an adverse way. So what we had to do is close the early childhood program on March 23rd. What that meant was we couldn't charge our fees any longer, and we had to refund or not charge for $135,000. So that closing of the early childhood program reduced our revenue by another $130,000. So that became even a bigger challenge. In early April, we also saw that our early childhood salaries for the year were lower by $67,171. So that was a really positive thing, that with the fewer children in the early childhood program, costs were reduced, and we had a savings of over $67,000. So that was something that was to the positive with that. Then in April, the CARES Act was approved by Congress. We known it as the PPP loan is the part that we've used, or the Payroll Protection Program. And we received a $249,930,000 grant from the US government through the Small Business Administration. So what does all that mean? How does all that go into our budget? So here's the budget for the last year. We're finishing the last month in June will be the last month of this budget. So it's fairly far along. We're through 11 months now. This is how it was planned up in our projections. And what you'll see is we had a net operating income. So we thought we would have a positive income of about $8,600 if all these revenue and expense things would take place. And that would leave us with about $260,000 in the general fund, a cash balance that we could use to move forward to manage the ministry. What actually has happened, it transpired, we had those bumps in the revenue income on the school income, the bumps with the tithes and offerings dropping, but then some savings also here on the expense side. So the net result is we were on track before the PPP loan to lose $217,863. So we were going to lose that amount of money this fiscal year had the PPP program not come along. Since we had $260,000 in the bank, we would have ended up with about $42,000 in the general fund. Not a desirable balance, but at least it would have been a positive balance. We took this PPP loan, and I've added it in here. I've only added in $200,000 of the $249,000 because not all of the PPP loan is forgivable. They tell us that about 20% is not going to be forgivable, and because it is there's no prepayment penalty, our intent is we would just give that $49,000 back to the U.S. government. So we're only using about $200,000 of it because you don't want to have a loan payment as a result of the PPP loan. So with the $200,000 in as income, we ended up with a $17,836, or we believe we will at the end of next month, loss for the year. Taking that out of the beginning of the year general fund balance, we're going to have about $242,356 in the bank. And that seems like a very nice cushion of cash for our expenditures moving forward, and you'll see why it's important as we look at next year's or this coming year's budget. So we have no spending authority beyond July 1 of 2020. That's when our fiscal year ends, and as a board, we need your input as a congregation to manage moving forward. So for 2021, we cannot spend past the end of June. When we took our initial budget plan, when COVID-19 started, we started to try and root through the changing landscape that we're having in enrollment and expenditures. If we took our same budget from last year and put it into, moved it forward for 2021, what we were seeing is based on the enrollment projections, we would end up with a zero balance in the general fund by the end of the year. We would have spent all the cash reserves that we had. The board of directors was concerned about exhausting the general fund and where that would leave the ministry without cash to do things like making payroll and make building payments. It didn't seem to be a path to go down. Because things are changing every day, we talked about using a 3-month or a 6-month budget plan and asking for that. It really didn't seem manageable. For those of you who've read the Lutheran Reporter, actually the Synod has now moved to a 3-month budget plan starting July 1. I think it's going to be hard for them to manage that, but that's the tactic that they've taken. So we decided that made the most sense was to go with a 12-month plan, evaluated in December at mid-year based on more firm enrollment numbers and income numbers. But the unknowns that we have in our plan is we don't know when we're going to get back to normal worship, when we're going to get back to normal church activities or more normal church activities like Sunday school and VBS and youth and adult ministry. And you saw this week that Lauren has had to cancel VBS for this year. So that activity is not going to take place. We also have unknowns with the enrollment of K through 8 and the early childhood program. When are parents going to feel safe sending their kids to school due to the effects of the virus? We don't know, and we're not sure. We also know that we're going to have additional staffing in the school due to CDC requirements for the COVID virus. We're seeing that in the summer camp. Our expenses for staff went up with those new regulations. Sandy Armstrong has done a great job of managing that. We're still going to make a profit on the summer camp activity, and I think it's great to have kids back in our school and our church. But we just have to understand that, and we won't really know it completely till we staff up at the start of the school year. And as I mentioned, the PPP loan, we anticipate, we don't know how it's going to be forgiven and how much, but right now we anticipate $200,000 and the remainder, the $49,930, being given back to the Small Business Administration. So as we went back through the budget, we had to scrub expense items, because if we were going to overspend by $240,000, that would not have been a very good thing. So we scrubbed our budget, and we've come up with these kind of major steps that we've taken to reduce our cost moving forward in the budget that we're going to propose. In particular, we are issuing spending freeze on all discretionary funding. I know we've had a very tight ship the past few years, and it's going to have to get tighter. It gets hard to know how to continue to do ministry when we're not spending anything on activities, but if the money's not there, that's just the reality of what we have to do. So we're going to have that spending freeze. We've held the K-8 teacher and principal pay to FY20 levels, so no step increases in experience and no salary increases in the base salary. We have eliminated the Lutheran Association for Special Education, or LACE, instructor at the school. That is about a $30,000 savings. We eliminated the athletic director and public relations stipend. It's paid to staff members for running those activities outside of their teaching responsibilities. We've increased the K-8 tuition by $500 per student. And there is we've included a fundraiser with the Ford Motor Car Company that will hopefully raise $6,000, we believe, in additional revenue. And as we've done the past few years, we're going to maximize the use of Thrive in Action teams. We generate anywhere from $18,000 to $28,000 of revenue, depending on the year, with Thrive in Action teams, and we continue to grow that. So hopefully we're going to continue to do that. So this is the budget that we've put together. What I did is, this is the two columns I've already showed you for the current budget year and the forecast. I have two of the actual years, fiscal year 18, 19, 20, which is our forecast, ending with that $242,000 balance in the general fund. And this is what we're proposing to do this year based on our best information as of today. This is what we believe may happen. And as we've seen with the COVID situation this year, things can happen that are way outside our control, but this is the best information that we have. We believe that we'll have a little increase in tithes and offerings. Members of St. Mark's has always been amazing givers, and we believe that we can meet that number. We have a revenue for the school based on 100 children in early childhood and 40 in K-8, and all those new revenue initiatives that I talked about with increased income from $500 per student. And then we have our expense items for the church and for the school, and this has all those items removed in the expense of operating the school. And we have our total expenditures. So in the end, we end up with a deficit or a negative budget. It has that we will have a deficit of $128,236. But because we have this balance in the general fund of a little over $242,000, we'll end the year with $114,117. I've said this before, we'd like to have about 10% of our annual budget in the bank at any one time, so that would be about $160,000. $114,000 is under that, but that's a number that is comfortable and manageable with the expenses that we have as a church. So this is the the proposal that the board has approved. We understand that, you know, losing $128,000 a year is not something that's sustainable over multiple years. But during a year with as much instability as we think we're going to continue to see due to COVID and now some other situations in our country, that we believe it's the way that we can manage the ministry, continue to do all the ministry activities that we have been doing in the past, and serve our community and our congregation as well as possible. So what the board is asking is that the congregation approve this spending budget as outlined on the previous slide. It has a total expense of $101,810,227 in expenses, and that leads to a deficit of $128,236 for fiscal year 21, and that is July 1 of 2020 through June 30th of 2021. Since we're not meeting as a group, we can't vote as a group. So we're going to ask you to vote online again, similar to what we did with the PPP loan. So if you're watching this video, you'll see that there's a voting screen that's available. If you feel comfortable after seeing this information, please feel free to vote at that time. If you have questions about the information and you would like more detail, we've left an email address on the page and a way for you to ask questions. Please submit your questions. We'll get back with you as quickly as possible. We want everyone to feel comfortable with voting on this recommendation, and hopefully you'll get all the answers that to the questions that you have. I thank you for taking the opportunity to think about our ministry here at St. Mark's. I ask you to pray about your vote and continue to pray for our ministry at this time. Thank you.